Real quick, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Greenlight.ai. We all know how important compliance is, and Greenlight.ai is the leader for compliance and EOR services, especially for talent platforms. You're going to hear about them later, but thank you to Greenlight.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tony Buffum, co-founder of Human Cloud, and I'm coming to you today from Nashville, where I really kicked off what's going to be our first conference season. If you're traveling at all for conferences or different events, you know there's a conference season in the spring, and there's another conference season in the fall. And we just kicked off here in Nashville. I had the pleasure of being invited to a conference board event for talent leaders that are at companies of about 60,000 employees or greater. And you can imagine the challenges, the successes, the great things that these leaders are going through and accomplishing, most importantly, sharing. And then at the end of that event, I stuck around and hosted a Human Cloud dinner. If you follow Human Cloud, hopefully you've attended one of our awesome dinners that we hold in different cities, oftentimes associated with events, sometimes just for fun to be in a different place. And we did that last night here in Nashville, and we're joined by several amazing HR leaders, some folks that I've worked with in the past, and others that I got to meet for the first time. But most importantly, talking about what's going on in our world and sharing our experience, lessons, and learnings. And so I wanted to debrief you on some of the key takeaways from this week. First of all, this won't surprise you. AI was the number one topic, no matter what audience we were with. And that's to be expected. I think from a talent perspective, the first thing I'd say about AI is the pressure. When you're thinking about talent acquisition, and to me, just across HR, TA, recruiting, sourcing especially, is the front line for AI application opportunity. But when I say pressure, it's clear that in organizations, there's a lot of pressure to be applying AI to really drive an impact on costs. This is an area where a lot of organizations feel like they know there's a lot of volume. They know one of the most important things in talent acquisition is speed to talent, just getting talent in the door and automating as much of the process as possible to take out, frankly, all of the pain and all the monotony and the back and forth. At the end of the day, you want your really sharp, talented people connecting live with really talented folks, but just those that you really need to, so that you can get to decisions fast and get talent on board fast. So when speed is the name of the game, anything that's not value added really needs to be automated and taken out of the process. And this is an area where, for a lot of TA organizations, there's just pressure to be getting something implemented and either taking costs out, which means, reducing headcount, of course, and not necessarily just letting people go, but maybe not backfilling open positions as you have people getting promoted or turnover or whatever it might be, or increasing capacity, by adding a lot more productivity through different tools. Can your recruiters or sourcers just take on more work? So there's definitely a strong sense of just pressure to do more and to get something implemented fast. And that's within a context of AI is still really new. Especially, imagine you're in these large organizations and it's hard to move a big ship. So, we heard some really great sharing about massive projects that just take a lot of time, not only, of course, to plan out and pilot and implement, but just adapt and adjust to the changes, the reactions of teams, and make sure you're getting people on board and you're training. And, it's a ton of work. So doing that in an environment where employees in general, not just the folks impacted by the change, but all employees and hiring managers alike are still new to this type of technology and not 100% comfortable. So anytime we're talking about AI implementation and we get excited about the potential and the opportunities, there's also this fret. There's this concern about, well, what does this really mean? And are people really comfortable with these new tools? Because they're used to doing things a certain way. And now a robot is doing it, or an agent is taking on some of these responsibilities, or something that used to directly interact with and touch is automated, and you kind of need to trust that it's going to happen. So there's a lot of excitement, still, of course, a lot of uncertainty around applying these new tools, which really brings me to the next theme that probably, if you're in TA, wouldn't surprise you. If you're in anything where you're, especially in a big company, but where you're bringing on new vendors and new products, platforms, solutions, you've experienced, which is disappointment. As different leaders would talk about companies they partner with, tools they use, we often talk about this idea, this productivity promise of AI. Like, oh, if you can implement these tools, you'll be able to do a million different things you wouldn't be able to do. It's going to be easy to implement. It's going to drive all of these savings. That's the productivity promise. The reality is it's a lot of work, and you often get a fraction of what is promised. And that leads to disappointment by the users. And while you're constantly kind of adapting to what you had in mind versus what's actually going to work. For me, it was a validating experience, frankly, because at Human Cloud, when we look to elevate and accelerate the adoption of workforce marketplaces, flexible workforce marketplaces, really getting more organizations, to me, HR leaders ideally, but more organizations adopting these different marketplaces as a flexible option that gives them the agility and speed that they're looking for with talent. We created Human Cloud to make that easier. And we do that through leveraging trust and transparency. And we get to trust and transparency through things like our reviews. We call them kudos. When you see other leaders in other businesses that have not only partnered with an organization, but will share their feedback and share their success, it gives you confidence that, okay, if I work with them on a similar project, then I'm going to have similar success. I can count on that. We also do that through sharing of business cases. What did this particular company deliver through this marketplace that they partnered with, or EOR or other provider? And what was the project? What were the results, right? At the end of the day, we really want to know, what are the outcomes, because we want to be able to at least replicate what someone else has already experienced. And we know when you're especially talking about taking on something new, we get confidence and trust by understanding that there's already been success here, by benchmarking and knowing that we can learn from someone else's experience and maybe even improve. But most importantly, we've got confidence going into this next project. So through business cases that are shared, that's a great way to see what's possible, generate ideas, and at least a starting point of, okay, you've done this before, it was successful, can you do it again with our organization? And then finally, we also do this through things like badges and certifications and our own Human Cloud rating system. We take all the different elements of compliance, support and service, talent availability, whatever. There's a myriad of different categories and areas that we measure these different companies on, and we generate that into a score so that at least it gives you some sense of comparison. But that's it, the Human Cloud concept. We see this all over different industries and markets and a lot of different applications. What's really cool about our Human Cloud score is that you can adjust it to your respective business. Something around a certain skill set, a certain function availability may not be important for your organization. I think of, even when I did my own implementations back as a HR operator, as we kick off different approaches of partnerships, there were functions that we just said, hey, we're not going to leverage flexible or on-demand talent in this function. So that whole function off limits. Well, then it's not really important to partner with a provider that's really strong in that particular function. Maybe it's legal, maybe it's, government, interactions. So that adaptability of the scoring allows our users to go in and create their own custom score that allows them to evaluate all of their different partners and solutions on their own terms. So that we think that's really cool. That's a great reason to create a profile as a buyer and see how does this help you make your decision faster and see which solutions are best for you. Again, that's our goal. We want to make this really easy. You're going to continue to see more automation, more validation, and just this platform becoming increasingly robust to accomplish exactly what I saw and validated in some of these discussions, which is what's the gap between what we're hearing and what's the window dressing for a solution or provider and what's the reality. Because we know as buyers, the closer and faster you can get to reality, the easier it is to make a decision and the more successful your implementation is going to be. Finally, I'm really reflecting on the dinner that I went to and combining both of these events. The most important thing and the biggest takeaway, and frankly, it's probably always a takeaway when I go on trips like this, is just the sharing, like the community building. And that's why I feel so fortunate as a part of Human Cloud to be able to bring leaders together and start discussions around what are our challenges, what are we facing, really kind of at a macro level, whether it's the economy, whether it's changes and trends with the labor market, whether it's technology. As we sit right in the center and see all this happening in different industries and different companies, we try to surface that and share the experience within a community. And our dinners really go a long way to drive that. And the thing I love most about our dinners is it always kicks off talking about a lot of these trends. Right now, it's just how opaque and uncertain the economy is as we look out over the course of the year. There's cautious optimism coming out of last year where we saw, probably surprisingly for most, decent GDP growth. But there's also a really kind of tenuous position with the labor market and a lot of technology moving really fast. So as we talk about those different things, we hear from leaders about just uncertainty, anxiety around where to invest, where to take bets when they're not quite sure what the growth outlook will look like, and therefore organizations being really conservative about investments like headcount. And so, certainly there's we try to provide them lots of levers and options to be able to tackle that. But when we talk about those things and share, different experiences and how people are solving that for their respective companies, even no matter how far apart industries can be, there's lessons, especially I think from an HR perspective, in the change management experience. Because no matter what, when you're trying to implement something new, there's change required. You're trying to get a lot of people on board. You're trying to motivate people around using something new. And that change experience is challenging and it's rewarding no matter what industry you're in. And we can learn from other people's experiences. So creating that community is to me one of the really fun parts of what we make happen at Human Cloud. And what I think is even better is, the conversations always start there. Then we have some really great food and some great drinks, and it finishes just getting to know other people that are sharing similar experiences in different parts of the region, the different industries, or different parts of the world. We've come together in one place, and we're just getting to know each other and expanding that network. And that connection is really the most fun. And it makes it so that's even better the next time. So leaving Music City, I'm really excited, having had this experience and met some great new people. I want to thank a really good friend of mine, Andrew Honeybone, the CPO of Unlock Health, who hosted the dinner with me last night. I want to thank Jeremy Eskenazi with Conference Board for inviting me to join the Conference Board event that I was at this week. those connections always make things even more fun because we get to keep working with people that we just love. So Nashville's been great. We're looking forward to more events. Like I said, this kicks off a conference season that moves on to, in March, Transform, which is one of the best HR conferences, HR technology conferences that I've attended. I'll at least be at the beginning of that. We'll attend with other human cloud leaders. Matt Matola is going to join me at SIA Executive Forum in Austin. Austin, one of my favorite cities, some of the best barbecue, and I've been to a lot of different places. So I'm looking forward to that. And SAA always has really great events. April has SHRM Talent, an event I always go to. I have a great relationship with SHRM, particularly SHRM Labs. So look forward to the kind of content that we'll have at that event. And ProcureCon. ProcureCon is actually an event that we haven't been to in the past. We're excited to check out. A lot of our clients really like this as an event, which is pulling us to be there and do something and get some folks together. We'll be there. And then in May, another conference award event in Chicago, one of my favorite cities. So this is just kicking off. There'll be more events, more cities. If you're going to be anywhere near any of those locations, I encourage you to check out what we're doing. We'll have dinners. We'll do more of our podcasts. We'll do presentations. Matt and I like to speak at a lot of these events. So I encourage you to check it out. Check out our webpage. Most importantly, check out app.humancloud.com. There you can explore and discover these different platforms. You can check out the different information that we have, our business cases, what's trending. You can also check out our blog and hear about the different interviews we're having on the podcast. And most importantly, give us feedback. This is still a relatively new platform that is adapting and evolving every single day. And it's because of the feedback we get from folks like you that are listening to this. So thank you for tuning in. Check out everything that's coming. Nashville's been great, but I can't wait to get back home to Charleston. Everybody, I hope you have a great day. And thanks for joining Human Cloud.